Tamayo Perry was an American professional surfer, lifeguard, and actor. He was a true legend in the surfing community, known for his incredible skills at Oahu's Banzai Pipeline, one of the most notorious reef surf breaks on the planet, and was considered as one of the most prominent pipeline surfers of all time. Death by shark. On June 23, 2024, Perry was attacked by a shark near Goat Island while surfing off Oahu's north shore. During the attack, he sustained fatal injuries, losing an arm and a leg. His death was the first fatal shark attack on Oahu in over 20 years. He was 49. Benji Gregory was an American child actor and voice artist who captured the hearts of audiences during the late 80s, best known for his role as Brian Tanner on the beloved NBC sitcom Alf, which aired from 1986 to 1990. Death by heat. On June 13, 2024, tragedy struck when Gregory was found dead inside his car at a Chase Bank parking lot in Peoria, Arizona. Apparently, he fell asleep in his vehicle and succumbed to heat stroke at just 46 years old. Authorities ruled his death as accidental.
Pierre Levègue was a French racing driver who competed in Formula One and sports car racing during the 1950s. He is best known for his involvement in the 1955 Le Mans disaster, one of the deadliest accidents in motorsport history. Pierre Levègue, death by grandstand. At the 1955 24 Hours of Le Mans race, Levègue's Mercedes-Benz car collided with another vehicle, launching it into the grandstand. Pierre Levègue, along with 83 spectators, would lose their lives that fateful day. Bessie Smith was a renowned American blues singer who rose to prominence in the 1920s. Known as the Empress of the Blues, she signed with Columbia Records in 1923 and went on to record numerous hit songs. Her music had a profound impact on the development of blues and jazz. Bessie Smith, death by lover. On September 26, 1937, Smith was traveling with her lover Richard Morgan, who was driving when they were involved in a collision on Highway 61 near Clarksdale, Mississippi. Smith sustained critical injuries and was rushed to a local hospital, where she later succumbed to her wounds. Her lover escaped with only minor injuries. Mel Ott was a legendary American baseball player who made his MLB debut in 1926 at the young age of 17 and quickly established himself as a dominant power hitter. He spent his entire 22-year career with the New York Giants. Born in 1909, Ott is considered one of the greatest right fielders in the history of the game. Mel Ott, death by collision. Ott was in a horrible auto accident in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi in November 1958. He was transferred to the hospital, where he died a week later at the age of 49. Ott died in a similar manner to two other New York Giants Hall of Famers, Frankie Frisch in 1973 and Carl Hubbell in 1988. Dwayne Alman was an American guitarist and co-founder of the influential Southern rock band, the Allman Brothers Band. Born in 1946 in Tennessee, Alman is widely regarded as one of the greatest and most influential guitarists of all time. Dwayne Alman, death by Harley Davidson. On October 29, 1971, while the band was on a break from touring and recording, Alman was riding his Harley-Davidson motorcycle at high speed when a flatbed boom truck stopped suddenly in the intersection. He died several hours later from injuries sustained in the accident. He was only 24 years old. Bob Clark was a highly acclaimed film director and screenwriter who rose to prominence in the 1970s and 1980s. He was responsible for some of the most successful and iconic films of that era, including Porky's, 1981, and the beloved holiday film A Christmas Story, 1983. Bob Clark, death by drunk driver. Clark and his younger son, Ariel Clark, age 22, died in a head-on collision on the Pacific Coast Highway in Pacific Palisades, Los Angeles, on the morning of April 4, 2007. The accident happened when an SUV crossed the median and collided with Clark's vehicle, leading to an 8-hour closure of the highway. The police found that the SUV driver, Hector Manuel Velázquez Nava, had a blood alcohol content 3 times over the legal limit and was operating the vehicle without a license. Lisa Baines was an acclaimed American actress known for her roles in film and television. Some of Baines's most well-known film credits include the comedy blockbuster Cocktail, 1988, starring Tom Cruise, the thriller Gone Girl, 2014, and the comedy A Cure for Wellness, 2016. On television, she had recurring roles in shows such as Nashville and Royal Pains. Lisa Baines, death by scooter. On June 4, 2021, Baines was in a marked crosswalk in Manhattan when she was struck by a person operating an electric scooter, falling to the ground and hitting her head on the pavement. The scooter rider fled the scene. Baines was admitted to Mount Sinai Morningside Hospital with a traumatic brain injury and died there 10 days later at the age of 65. Bob Simon was a renowned American journalist who spent over 40 years reporting for CBS News. He was known for his insightful coverage of major global events and his ability to bring complex stories to life through his vivid storytelling. He amassed an amazing 27 Emmy Awards and 5 Peabody Awards throughout his career. Bob Simon, death by limo driver. Simon, the longtime 60 Minutes correspondent and legendary CBS News reporter, died on February 11, 2015 in a car accident after his for-hire limo driver was in a collision with another vehicle in New York City. Simon was extracted from the roof of the limo by rescue workers and transported to St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital, where he died a short time later. He was 73 years old. Tara Brown was a fascinating figure whose life and untimely death inspired one of the most iconic songs in the Beatles' catalog, A Day in the Life, written by John Lennon. As the heir to the multi-billion-dollar Guinness fortune, Brown moved in elite social circles and counted Paul McCartney and the Beatles among his close friends. Tara Brown, death by alcohol. On December 17, 1966, Brown was speeding through South Kensington in his Lotus Elan with his friend, model Suki Potier. Intoxicated, he missed a traffic light, swerved to miss a car, and crashing into a parked vehicle. He succumbed to his injuries the next day. He was 21 years old. Potier later stated that Brown had swerved the car to take the brunt of the crash, potentially saving her life. Victor Davis, the Canadian swimmer, is widely regarded as one of the greatest breaststrokers of all time. He is particularly renowned for his performances in the 200-meter breaststroke, an event in which he set multiple world records and won gold medals at the 1984 and 1988 Olympics. Victor Davis, death by argument. On November 13, 1989, after an argument outside of a nightclub, Davis had walked to the middle of the road and was brandishing a juice bottle at the man who was getting in his vehicle. The man proceeded to run him over. He would die 2 days later in the hospital. He was 25 years old. Albert Camus was a renowned French philosopher, author, and journalist who made significant contributions to the philosophical movement of absurdism. Makes me think about some of the comments I get. Born in 1913 in Mondovi, French Algeria, Camus is widely recognized as one of the most influential thinkers of the 20th century. Albert Camus, death by publisher. Albert Camus tragically died in a car accident on January 4, 1960, near Sens, France. He was returning to Paris with his publisher Michel Gallimard, who was driving the car. The accident occurred when Gallimard lost control and crashed into a tree. Albert Camus was gone at the age of 46. Roger Earl Mosley was an American actor, director, and producer. Born on December 18, 1942, in Los Angeles, California, He started his acting career in the 1970s with roles in various television shows and movies. His most notable role was as the helicopter pilot T.C. in the hit series Magnum P.I., starring alongside Tom Selleck, which premiered in 1980. Mosley's tenure on Magnum P.I. was significant. He appeared in all 162 episodes over the show's 8 seasons. His performance as the affable and loyal T.C. brought him widespread recognition and critical praise. Roger E. Mosley, death by crash. On August 4, 2022, Mosley was involved in a severe car accident in Linwood, California, which left him critically injured and paralyzed from the shoulders down. He succumbed to his injuries on August 7, 2022, at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center at the age of 83. Thurman Munson was an American professional baseball player who spent his entire 11-year career in Major League Baseball as the catcher for the New York Yankees. He was a 7-time All-Star, the 1976 American League MVP, and a key member of the Yankees' World Series championship teams in 1977 and 1978. Thurman Munson, death by jet. On August 2, 1979, New York Yankees captain Thurman Munson died in a plane crash near his home in Canton, Ohio. Munson was piloting his private jet. He was 32 years old at the time, cutting short the career and life of a true Yankees legend. Leonard Skinnard is a legendary American rock band. At the heart of Leonard Skinnard's success was the songwriting prowess of the original members, particularly the trio of Ronnie Van Zant, Gary Rossington, and Allen Collins. Their songs, such as the iconic Free Bird and Sweet Home Alabama, have become staples of classic rock radio. Leonard Skinnard, Tragedy by Lack of Fuel. On October 20, 1977, the band's chartered plane ran out of fuel and crashed in a wooded area of Mississippi, claiming the lives of frontman Ronnie Van Zant, guitarist Steve Gaines, and backup singer Cassie Gaines, among others. Audie Murphy was an American hero, soldier, songwriter, and actor. Born into poverty in Texas, he overcame a difficult childhood to become the most decorated soldier of World War II. He would go on to star in dozens of Hollywood westerns. Audie Murphy, death by mountain. The details surrounding Murphy's plane crash are both harrowing and mysterious. On May 28, 1971, he boarded a private jet that was headed from Atlanta to Roanoke, Virginia. Shortly after takeoff, the plane experienced engine failure and crashed into a mountainside. All 6 on board perished in the crash. Payne Stewart was a professional golfer who achieved great success on the PGA Tour. Known for his distinctive knickers and tam o'shanter cap, Stewart had a flair for the dramatic and was beloved by golf fans around the world. Payne Stewart, death by field. On October 25, 1999, the private jet carrying the famous golfer and several others mysteriously lost cabin pressure, causing everyone on board to lose consciousness. The plane continued flying on autopilot until it eventually ran out of fuel and crashed in a field in South Dakota. Payne Stewart and 5 others on board all perished in the crash. Randy Rhoads was one of the most talented and influential guitarists in the history of heavy metal. He is best known for his work with Ozzy Osbourne in the early 1980s, where he helped define the sound of Osbourne's solo career after leaving Black Sabbath. Randy Rhoads' death by prank gone wrong. The tragic plane crash that took the life of guitar virtuoso Randy Rhoads is a somber moment in rock history. On March 19, 1982, Rhoads died when the small plane he was traveling in clipped the Ozzy Osbourne tour bus and crashed. Rhoads was just 25 years old at the time of the accident. Will Rogers, an American humorist, actor, and social commentator, charmed audiences with his witty observations and relatable charm. By the mid-1930s, Rogers had become a household name in the United States and was among the highest-paid Hollywood film stars. Will Rogers, death by takeoff. On August 15, 1935, Will Rogers and aviation pioneer Wiley Post died in a plane crash near Point Barrow, Alaska. They were flying in a Lockheed hybrid airplane when the engine stalled shortly after takeoff, causing the plane to crash into a lagoon. Both men died instantly. Roberto Clemente was a true legend both on and off the baseball field. He was a 15-time All-Star, 12-time Gold Glove winner, and led the Pittsburgh Pirates to a World Series championship in 1971. But Clemente was more than just a talented athlete. He was a humanitarian who dedicated his life to helping others. Roberto Clemente, death by circumstance. Clemente's life was cut short on December 31, 1972, when the plane he was traveling in crashed while delivering relief supplies to earthquake victims in Nicaragua. He was just 38 years old. But his legacy lives on as one of the most beloved and respected figures in baseball history. The day the music died was a tragic event that shook the music world. On February 3, 1959, a plane crash in Iowa claimed the lives of three of the biggest stars in rock and roll history: Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper. It's a day that will forever be etched in the minds of music lovers as a tragic turning point in the history of rock and roll. The day the music died. On February 3, 1959, the plane, chartered to take the three musicians to their next tour stop after a show in Clear Lake, Iowa, encountered severe weather and crashed just minutes after takeoff. Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper all died instantly, cutting short the careers and lives of these immensely talented artists who were at the peak of their popularity. Graham Hill was a true legend of motorsport. As the only driver to have won the coveted Triple Crown of Motorsport, which includes victories at the Indianapolis 500, the Monaco Grand Prix, and the 24 Hours of Le Mans, cementing his place in history as one of the greatest racers of all time. Graham Hill, death by Piper Aztec. Hill died in a plane crash on November 29, 1975. He was piloting a Piper Aztec light aircraft when it crashed near Arkley in Hertfordshire, United Kingdom, while approaching Elstree Airfield. The crash also claimed the lives of the 5 other passengers on board, who were key members of his Embassy Hill racing team. John F. Kennedy, Jr. was a prominent figure who captured the public's imagination. He was a son of President John F. Kennedy and First Lady Jackie Kennedy. He carved out his own path, becoming a successful magazine publisher and lawyer. John F. Kennedy, Jr., death by wedding. John F. Kennedy, Jr., his wife Carolyn Bessette, and her sister Lauren Bessette tragically died in a plane crash on July 16, 1999. Kennedy was piloting his Piper Saratoga aircraft en route to a wedding when it crashed into the Atlantic Ocean near Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. Tony Lima burst onto the PGA Tour in the early 1960s, and his rise to stardom was swift. Within just a few years of turning pro, he had won multiple tournaments, including the 1964 Open Championship at St. Andrews, cementing his status as a rising superstar. Tony Lima, death by lack of fuel. Lima died in a plane crash on July 24, 1966. The crash occurred in Lansing, Illinois, as Lima was traveling to an exhibition tournament following the PGA Championship in Akron, Ohio. The plane reportedly ran out of fuel and crashed onto a golf course. Sadly, all 4 people on board, including Lima's wife, perished in the accident. Stan Rogers was a Canadian folk singer-songwriter whose songs were inspired by historical facts. His songs often told the stories of fishermen, loggers, and railway workers. He was just gaining popularity at the time of his untimely demise. Stan Rogers, death by fire. Rogers died on June 2, 1983, at the age of 33. He perished in a fire on Air Canada Flight 797, which occurred while the plane was on the tarmac at the Greater Cincinnati Airport. The tragic incident also claimed the lives of 22 others. Art Scholl was a legendary American aviator, cinematographer, and stunt pilot. He was known for his daring aerial maneuvers, performing incredible feats for movies like Top Gun and The Right Stuff. Art Scholl, death by stunt gone wrong. Scholl died September 16, 1985, performing a daring stunt during the filming of Top Gun when his Pitts S-2 camera plane failed to recover from an intentional tailspin and plunged into the Pacific Ocean. Jane Dornacher's career took off in the 1970s when she began reporting on traffic conditions from the skies above New York City. With her sharp wit and unflappable personality, she quickly became a beloved figure, entertaining listeners with her colorful descriptions of the gridlock below. Jane Dornacher, death by news. Dornacher tragically died in a helicopter crash on October 22, 1986, while giving a live traffic report for WNBC in New York City. The helicopter she was in experienced mechanical failure and plunged into the Hudson River. Kyu Sakamoto was a Japanese singer and actor who rose to fame in the 1960s. Known for his upbeat and catchy pop songs, Sakamoto became a cultural icon in Japan and beyond. Kyu Sakamoto, death by mountain. On August 12, 1985, Sakamoto was a passenger on Japan Airlines Flight 123, which crashed into Mount Takamagahara in Gunma Prefecture, Japan. This accident is known as the deadliest single aircraft accident in aviation history, with 520 fatalities. Harriet Quimby was a true trailblazer. She earned her pilot's license in 1911, just 2 years after the Wright brothers' historic first flight. Quimby then went on to make history again in 1912, when she became the first woman to fly across the English Channel. Harriet Quimby, death by fall. Quimby, a pioneering aviator, tragically died on July 1, 1912. She was piloting her 2-seater Blériot monoplane over Dorchester Bay, Massachusetts, when she lost control of the aircraft. Both she and her passenger, William Willard, were ejected from the plane and fell to their deaths. Leslie Howard was an English actor, producer, and director who rose to fame during the golden age of Hollywood. He is best known for his performances in films such as Gone with the Wind, Pygmalion, and The Scarlet Pimpernel. Leslie Howard, death by bad luck. Howard's life was cut short when the plane he was traveling on was shot down by German fighters over the Bay of Biscay in 1943. He was just 50 years old at the time. Despite his untimely death, Leslie Howard's legacy as one of the great actors of Hollywood's golden age endures. Beverly Homer DeLay was a true pioneer of early aviation. He performed death-defying stunts that left spectators breathless. DeLay soon adapted these thrilling maneuvers for the movies, appearing alongside some of Hollywood's biggest stars. Beverly Homer DeLay, death by sabotage. DeLay tragically died in a plane crash on July 4, 1923. The crash occurred during an air show in Venice, Los Angeles, and was suspected to be caused by sabotage due to professional jealousy. Despite the suspicions, no one was ever charged in connection with his death.
John Gaudreau was an American professional ice hockey player who played 11 seasons in the NHL. Gaudreau made waves early in his career, becoming a finalist for the Calder Memorial Trophy as the league's best rookie and won the Lady Byng Memorial Trophy as the league's most gentlemanly player for the 2016-17 season. In 2024, Gaudreau was signed with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Sadly, tragedy came in a way he never saw coming. Death by drunk driver. Tragically, on the evening of August 29, 2024, John's life and that of his brother Matthew were cut short in a heartbreaking accident. While cycling together in Oldmans Township, New Jersey, they were struck from behind by a drunk driver who was recklessly attempting to pass other vehicles on a single-lane rural highway.
Kyrie Jackson played college football for the Fort Scott Greyhounds, the Alabama Crimson Tide, and the Oregon Ducks. He was selected by the Minnesota Vikings in the 4th round of the 2024 NFL Draft, and his life was about to end. Kyrie Jackson, death by drunk driver. Jackson, along with 2 of his former high school teammates, died in a car crash in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, in the early morning hours of July 6, 2024, when another driver, who was drunk at the wheel, attempted to change lanes at a high speed and struck 2 vehicles, including the one in which Jackson was a passenger. He was 24. Dwayne Haskins, a talented American football quarterback. He was chosen by the Washington Redskins football team as the 15th overall pick in the 1st round of the 2019 NFL Draft. He later joined the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2021. Unaware that his life would tragically end soon after. Dwayne Haskins, death by dump truck. On April 9, 2022, while in Florida for training camp, Haskins ran out of gas on his way to practice. In an attempt to reach a gas station across the busy freeway, he was struck by a dump truck and then run over by an SUV. Dwayne Haskins tragically died at the age of 24. Jeff Gladney was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings in the 1st round of the 2020 NFL Draft and played as a cornerback in the NFL. Unfortunately, his career and life were about to be cut short. On March 16, 2022, Gladney was on top of the world. He had made a move and signed a big contract with the Arizona Cardinals. Then, on May 30, 2022, Gladney, who was speeding on the freeway with his girlfriend, Mercedes Palacios, both died when Gladney's Mercedes SUV clipped a car and spun off the road, crashed into a brick wall, and ignited into flames. Gladney was 25 years old. Palacios was 26. Trey Walker was an American professional football player who played as a cornerback for the Baltimore Ravens in the NFL. Born on August 5, 1992 in Miami, Florida, Walker was drafted by the Ravens in the 4th round of the 2015 NFL Draft and would die soon after. Trey Walker, death by joyride. On the evening of March 17, 2016, 23-year-old Walker went for an innocent joyride on a dirt bike down the street. Not wearing a helmet, he collided with another vehicle. He died the next day in the hospital from his injuries. Edwin Jackson was an American football linebacker who played in the NFL. Born on December 19, 1991 in Atlanta, Georgia, he played college football at Georgia Southern University, then signed with the Arizona Cardinals and later played for the Indianapolis Colts. But the good times were about to end. Edwin Jackson, death by drunk driver. On February 4, 2018, Jackson was a passenger in an Uber when Jackson suddenly felt ill and asked if they could pull over. The 2 men exited the vehicle when suddenly they were both struck by a drunk driver in a Ford F-150 pickup truck. Both Jackson and the Uber driver died at the scene. Chris Henry was an American professional football player who played as a wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals in the NFL. He showed great potential on the field, recording 119 receptions, 1,826 receiving yards, and 21 touchdowns over 5 seasons, but it was all about to end. Chris Henry, death by argument. Chris Henry tragically died in a car accident in 2009. He fell from the back of a moving truck during a domestic dispute. His fiancée was driving the truck at the time of the accident. He was 26 years old. Brandon Burlsworth was an inspiring figure in American football. Starting as a walk-on for the Arkansas Razorbacks, he would end up being drafted by the Indianapolis Colts 4 years later. His life and tragic death inspired a terrific movie called Greater, the Brandon Burlsworth story. Brandon Burlsworth, Death by Bad Luck. Brandon Burlsworth's story is indeed a tragic one. Just 11 days after being drafted by the Indianapolis Colts, he died in a car accident on April 28, 1999. Burlsworth was driving from Fayetteville to his hometown of Harrison, Arkansas, when his car collided with a tractor trailer. Jerry Brown was an American professional football linebacker who played in the NFL. He had a stint with the Indianapolis Colts and was with the Dallas Cowboys at the time of his untimely death at the age of 25. Jerry Brown, death by teammate. In the early morning of December 8, 2012, Brown was a passenger in a car driven by his Cowboys teammate Josh Brent. About 2:21 a.m., Brent drove the car at high speed into an outside curb on Texas State Highway 114 outside Dallas, causing the vehicle to flip at least once and then come to rest in the middle of a service road and catch fire. Brent survived, Jerry Brown did not. Fred Washington was a professional American football player who played as a defensive tackle for the Chicago Bears in the NFL. Born on July 11, 1967, in Denison, Texas, he had his promising career cut short during his rookie season. Fred Washington, death by tree. On December 21, 1990, Washington was driving northbound on Illinois 43 in the Chicago suburb where the Bears have their training camp. When he suddenly lost control of the vehicle, the car bounced off the right curb, crossed the road, and struck a tree. He was gone at the age of 23. Stacy Torren was an American football player who played as a defensive back for the Los Angeles Raiders. Born on October 11, 1961, in Indianapolis, Indiana. Little did he know that in 1989 he would have his life and career cut short. Stacy Torren, death by lack of seatbelt. Torren's life was cut short when he was involved in a car crash that shocked fans and fellow players alike. On August 5, 1989, Torren lost control of his BMW, which skidded, flipped multiple times, and crashed into a tree in Marina del Rey. He was not wearing a seatbelt and was ejected from the vehicle. He was 27. Andy Spiva, an NFL player who was a linebacker for the Atlanta Falcons. Spiva was known for his tenacity and grit on the field. Tragically, his career would be abruptly ended. Andy Spiva, death by weather. On April 3, 1979, Spiva was driving in rainy conditions when his sports car slid off of a street in the Atlanta area and collided with a tree. Spiva died at Northside Hospital that day after sustaining head and chest injuries. His passenger and teammate Garth Tennapel was also seriously injured in the crash, ending his NFL career. David Overstreet was a talented running back who played in both the Canadian Football League and the NFL, and was playing for the Miami Dolphins at the time of his horrific accident. David Overstreet, death by sleep. David Overstreet died in a car crash on June 24, 1984, at the age of 25. Overstreet fell asleep at the wheel while driving from Michigan to Texas, causing his car to swerve off the road and crash into gasoline pumps, which then exploded. His teammates from the Dolphins wore a helmet decal with the number 20 in his memory during their 1984 season. Ralph Norwood was an American football offensive tackle whose NFL dream had just come true. In 1989, at just 23, he was drafted and signed by the Atlanta Falcons. However, 11 games into the season, his life and career would be cut short. Ralph Norwood, death by tree. Norwood died in a one-car accident on November 24, 1989. He was alone in his car when he crossed over a lane of oncoming traffic, traveled down an embankment, and struck a tree. Many believe he fell asleep at the wheel. Eric Andolsek was an American football offensive lineman who played for the Detroit Lions in the NFL after being drafted by the Lions in the 5th round of the 1988 NFL Draft. Andolsek quickly became a key player for the Lions, starting as an offensive guard and helping to block for the legendary running back Barry Sanders. But everything was about to end. Eric Andolsek, death by semi-trailer. Eric Andolsek had his life cut short on June 23, 1992, in what can only be described as a freak accident. He was run down by a semi-trailer truck while working in his yard in Thibodaux, Louisiana. The driver of the truck had taken his eyes off the road, missed a turn, and drove over Andolsek as he was cutting the grass. He was 25 years old. Rusty Chambers was an NFL linebacker who played for the New Orleans Saints and the Miami Dolphins. Chambers led the Dolphins in tackles for 2 consecutive years, until his life was tragically cut short. Rusty Chambers, death by weather. Shortly before midnight on July 1, 1981, Chambers perished in a car crash in Hammond, Louisiana, just 5 miles from his residence. He was traveling with friends when their vehicle slid off a damp road and overturned, resulting in Chambers' immediate death. To pay tribute to their lost teammate, thanks for watching and stay safe. The Dolphins adorned the back of each player's helmet with a patch bearing his number 51 throughout the 1981 season.